Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Yo, hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today with the take on Naya Depths, thanks to Curator for the donation deck list. This is a pretty normal Naya list until you look at the board and you see 3 copies of Blood Moon. Blood Moon, obviously a pretty potent card in the right metagame, and here we want to try to go after decks like Eldrazi, Post, this sort of Bug, Beans decks, any decks that are pretty greedy with their mana base, where we can kind of take advantage of that. We do have access to 3 basics in this build with double forest and a plains, and then of course the 4 nobles and birds and Dryad Arbor to accelerate into hopefully a turn 2 Blood Moon. There were some small tweaks I made to this list. Apologies, Cradle, for not getting onto you before this, but I will go through them. I did change the commercial district to from a Lush Portico, and the reason for that was that I feel like if we are going for Blood Moon in the post-board games against some of these decks, you probably want to go for the commercial district first and then go for your basics, instead of going for your basics first and then having a red source that comes into play tapped potentially. I just thought it was nice having the extra red source as well over the 2 Savannahs, and then also having the plains and forests for Lush. So yeah, I think changing up there isn't too bad. And then the only other thing in the main deck was actually playing the Gaddock Teeg over the Collector Ouphe in the main deck. And the big reasoning for this, in my opinion, is Kolaghan's Command, which is really good against us, especially game 1. So having access to Gaddock Teeg to turn that off is fantastic. Teeg, yeah, hitting K command out of the Post decks, the Eldrazi decks, the sort of Grim Monolith Mystic Forge decks, which are I've run into a fair bit online. So pretty happy to try out Teeg here over Collector Ouphe. Will definitely bring up when we draw Teeg, if potentially Collector Ouphe would have been more relevant, or vice versa. The only other change was I really wanted to play a Celestial Purge in the deck, because I think Purge is pretty solid at the moment and pretty well positioned against the mono red decks. It allows you to go for the turn 1 plains to swords their threat and then still have an out if they Blood Moon, which is really nice. And yeah, I think being able to hit pretty much any of the threats out of blue black Reanimator other than Brazen Burrower is pretty great. So the flexibility of Purge I think is awesome. I did take out a Force of Vigor for this. The big reason was that I think Force is obviously great against decks like Painter or lands, and I do like that Purge hits Blood Moon, it hits Fable, so yeah, pretty keen to test it. I didn't want to take out a Blood Moon because I do want to test that a bit more, so I obviously want to draw into the Blood Moons that we want post-put. Spirit of Labyrinth is a card we haven't seen too much of in Legacy, especially since the printing of Orcish Bowmasters, but I really like Spirit, especially in a version where you can protect it with Mother of Runes. I think that's really nice. It's obviously open to Bowmaster, but I wouldn't say the Bowmaster is really a 4 of in any decks we've been playing online, so I'm pretty happy to see how Spirit goes there. We have Minsc and Boo, which was for a period probably the best Planeswalker in Legacy, but since then it really dropped off. I think a few different things. I think Orcish Bowmaster was a pretty big reason to not sort of sleeve up Minsc and Boo, because it does deal with the 1/1. It does make the draw effect obviously a little bit awkward as well. So happy to see where Minsc goes. Hey Fanwin, hope you're well as well. And then Mawloc. Mawloc, a card that right now isn't that well positioned, but I think just because of how good it is as removal of Green Sun Zenith, and also potentially removal that can scale if you draw it, I think it is worth having one in the deck. If you are playing red and you are playing a Green Suns deck like Mav, I think that Mawloc fits really nicely. So it doesn't deal with like the big reanimation spells, it doesn't deal with too many Eldrazi, and it doesn't deal with Frog, but there are some other cards in the metagame that it does hit. So we'll see how that goes. For the unfade decks, we obviously have the Gaddock Teeg. We also have the full 4 playset of Endurance. You typically see removal or additional removal if you splash red. We do have Mawloc, and Minsc in some ways is removal, but no Punishing Fires here, no bolts. Really relying on those swords in game 1. And then post board, having things like the Prismatic Ending, Celestial Purge, blasts are typically quite good as well. So yeah, pretty keen to see how that goes. But otherwise, pretty normal. Like 24 lands, one of those is Maze of Ith, so 23. We have the Once Upon a Times to hopefully just keep our game rolling. We do, of course, have Scryb Ranger, which is pretty sweet with Mother of Runes, and also quite nice at just trying to keep a frog at bay before it gets hit by a Bowmaster or a Fatal Push or any other shenanigans. But really keen to just see how this list goes, because this will be my second last stream of 2024. Gonna take a break and just focus on some other things, and then, you know, see where we are in 2025. So pretty keen to kick off with a bang, because the last league, although we put up a fight, didn't really finish how we probably wanted it to finish. So very keen to bounce back from that. The only thought was potentially an Ignoble Hierarch to have 2 sources that can tap for red off Green Suns, but I'm pretty happy to try to keep things as close as possible to what they were with the list that Karakas sent through. There is also the thought that Noble Hierarch does tap for white if in play, whereas if you have the Ignoble Hierarch to get Blood Moon in play, then you don't have access to white potentially. So I do like that. So let's see how this goes. Let's really put on a good performance tonight. Really just want to make sure that we are making the right decisions. We're not rushing anything, and yeah, taking the chances where we can to try to get ahead. Because one thing with Mav I've found is that there's not too many 2-for-1s. There always hasn't been. Like Swords is a 1-for-1, Wasteland's a 1-for-1. Sometimes Mother of Runes can get some out there, but you know, having the Minsc is nice. We'll see how this all ends up. Oh, okay. A lot of mana, and typically just seeing this hand I would say mulligan, but I'll talk through it as well. We do have interaction in Wasteland and Maze of Ith, which is nice. The tough thing about Maze of Ith right now is that a lot of the creature-based decks are also Wasteland decks, so you can't rely on Maze to keep their creatures at bay. And I think that, especially in the blind, I want to have a bit more of a plan, and this hand is pretty much accelerate, potentially Wasteland their first land, and hopefully hit a 2-drop at best, maybe a 3-drop like a Knight. But pretty happy to go down here. This is better. It is a little bit higher curve, as you can see. We don't have acceleration, but I do kind of like that we have like a free once for potentially a mana dork, and then turn 2 we can either hold up a once and swords or play the Knight. So I think with this hand it's kind of a stay low and have... It's really interesting because I think of the Minsc as the card to put back because it is 4 mana, but it is a pretty great payoff, and Knight can be found with Green Suns. Minsc, of course, can't be found. And if our plan is to once into a mana dork and then once into potentially just our 3rd land, then the Minsc is pretty great on turn 3. There's even a small thing where if you find a turn 1 mana acceleration creature like Noble Hierarch with Exalted, then on turn 3 you can play the Minsc, attack with the Boo, and then second main sack it to draw 2 cards. But I don't know if relying all on the Minsc is just a little bit too much, but I'm pretty keen to see how that goes because I think we can keep this. And then I think just because we are already on a 6, we need to take our chances on like just, you know, getting there with Minsc. So I'm happy to take a little bit of a risk for a pretty high reward because I think that it's worth it. But, you know, once potentially, most likely finding a mana dork with a turn 2 Knight is pretty nice. So I can definitely see why you would keep the Knight. Okay, we don't find a mana dork, but I am just going to lead on the Wooded Foothills as it is the known card. have a naming Eldrazi. Okay. So I think here I'm happy to go for Lush Portico. A little bit awkward here because having the Lush in play and then finding like a Wasteland is pretty great, because then you get to go both Swords and Wasteland next turn potentially. So definitely a position straight away where it's like, okay, Lush would have been pretty good here. Pretty happy to put this in our graveyard. It's also good just to note, like, hey, we have one Savannah left in the deck. Okay, there's a Knight. I think here we're just going to go for Karakas Pass. The Windswept could be worth just a little bit more down the line, because it could be Dryad Arbor. It could get us the color we get potentially Wastelanded off. Okay. So there's a Petal. I think straight away here we just want to Swords this. Okay. Wasteland's interesting here because we can take them off the Ancient Tomb, but they already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So without the tomb, they still have access to at least 3 mana next turn. I kind of like getting the Knight down. Question is, do I want to play the Wasteland? I think I do want to play the Wasteland, potentially even double Wasteland next turn. There's no difference of a 4/4 Knight and a 5/5 Knight, even if they're main decking Dismember. So I don't think we have to play the Windswept Heath here, which is something to think about, especially in a matchup where it does come down to life. Like, even if this turn they have to go for something like a 4 mana. Okay, that is fine. There's the Dryad Arbor. So here, I don't actually have to sacrifice the Windswept, which is kind of cool. I think I'm happy for that. Play the Minsc, attack, and then take out a spawn. Which they can sacrifice. Nice, that's a really cool play. So they sacrifice the spawn so we don't draw a card. Hey, thanks K-Sound, hope you're well. I don't think Eldrazi runs anything that allows them. Ooh, Cradle's pretty sweet. Cradle pretty much tapping for 2. Yeah, yikes. This is where it can get really tough against Eldrazi, because obviously the commands pretty much pay for themselves, and then the flesh rakers just keep dealing. Wow, and the ring. Okay. Oh, they didn't attack. Interesting. Interesting. They didn't. I guess these are all. Yeah, these are all there. These are all summoning sick. Okay. Spirit's actually pretty interesting because it does stop the ring. Sadly, the Dryad Arbor is just a little bit too slow. Because what I really want to do is have a land, so I could once for like Noble Hierarch. I guess we can't attack into the Flesh Raker anyway. And we can't fling, to be fair, as well. I think we're definitely wastelining the Cradle. So we're definitely ticking this up. And it has to go on this. And then I think we're holding the Boo back, which is a little bit tricky. I think it's a case of Spirit here. Play the Dryad Arbor and just take them off the Cradle. Yeah. Spirit actually a pretty fine draw there as well, especially once they played the One Ring. Okay. Annoying, but not the worst. Ooh, is this another command? Another ring. Okay. Interesting they didn't attack the Boo first. Like with the... I guess they just wanted to get the new ring down. Okay. Alright. This is a no. I think here I like getting rid of the Minsc to hit the flesh. One card. Is there a world where we can actually just tick this up to 7 and attack? I guess no. A little bit of yeah, we can't actually draw here because of the spirit, which is tough. So I think we kind of have to just see how they block here. It's tough as well because even if they put the Thought Knot in play, we don't draw off the Thought Knot because of the spirit. And then he they had protection as well. Of course. Tough one. Yeah, I didn't even... Yeah, I think that's just it. That is on me. The extra removal is great in Prismatic Ending. The Blood Moons I don't mind in this matchup. Teeg is obviously still great. The spirits, it's really tough because what do we have to draw? Really Minsc in there. Like turning off the ring is cool. Maybe like Ouphe is for that. Maybe Ouphe plays that role instead of the spirits. The endurances aren't great, but they're at least bodies. Force, I don't think we're going to worry about. Mums, like, don't really do a whole lot either. They are just small creatures. Like maybe the spirits are just better because they can attack a little bit better. And like if they bring in Dismember, maybe it's worth just having a mum around. Okay. Like turn 1 Noble Hierarch, turn 2 Wasteland and Spirit, and then start getting a clock going. I don't mind that. But yeah, apologies. Like, I should have just known they had the protection as well. That was just a total misplay. I think it's a really great just thing to always check as well. Like, between phases, always just check the board and just be aware of what's happening. Because I definitely rushed that a little bit. Interesting. Happy to play the Plat here. Just classic beatdown here. I'm glad they didn't actually play an Ancient Tomb because these spirits are really going to beat them down pretty quick. The tomb quickly becomes a little bit tricky. Teeg's pretty nice. That turns off K command. And then we have Karakas to save it from like Dismember. Wow. That's nice because it is the extra land for endurance. Yeah, really tough spot for them. I mean, that was just like classic beatdown, like... Honestly, we are playing Cradle, so I don't mind the one mum. Like, I don't think it's better than the extra spirit. I would love a swords. We don't have a swords, we do have a Mawloc. Which, honestly, I don't mind. Okay. This is very cool. The Blood Moon makes things a little bit awkward because here I would love to Wasteland. But to be fair, the land for me is also something to think about because if we Wasteland them and then don't draw a land next turn, we're definitely going for most likely Taiga. But I think just, you know, being able to take them off a soul land is just too good. Like, Thought Knot is the big thing that I'm thinking about, and this hand doesn't really have an answer to Thought Knot. So it's really how long can I keep that off? And if they had nothing to do with the temple, they surely have nothing to do with the cavern, which is great for us. Okay. That's funny. Taiga. Dryad. And there it is. Like, that's the big reason to keep the Wasteland, is that it allows us to Green Suns. But sadly, sometimes it just doesn't work out. We couldn't even, because the Dryad Arbor is exiled, we can't even endurance ourselves. And there's the Thought Knot we were worried about, so... Look, it buys us time, but it's not the land we wanted. What's this going to be? A command on their end step for 0, 1, 2. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, there it is. Tough, but definitely shows the power of Eldrazi. A deck you really can't stumble against, and we stumbled. Yeah, Thalia's in a tough spot, I find. A lot of lists have moved away from it, and I don't think I'm missing it too much either. There's not really any sort of fast combo in the format that cares about her. I guess there's not enough combo in the format, let alone combo that cares about her. Yeah, I feel like she isn't that missed either, which is really sad. I feel like a good metagame is when Thalia is decent, like both like just being a 2/1 with first strike, you know, not that bad against say mono red, where most of the goblins are X2s. And then also just being something to keep some of the unfair decks at bay. All right, here we go. But yeah, maybe it's tough because we wanted to Wasteland, keep them off Thought-Knot. If we allow them to Thought-Knot us, then they probably take the Moon, because it's something that they can't really deal with too well. But then we just don't have a great answer to Thought-Knot. Not a big fan of keeping one-landers, and I'll always stick to that, especially with this hand without any sort of mana acceleration other than Green Suns for Dryad Arbor. Okay. I will keep this. The question is, what do I bottom? And similar to the game 1, match 1 keep of 6 keeping Minsc, I feel like sometimes if you mulligan with a deck like Maverick, which is just behind the times, you do have to get a little bit lucky. So I think keeping the double Wastelands, I like keeping the Once and the Noble in case I want to accelerate turn 1, and then the Endurance. I think the outlier here is Liberator for me, because the Endurance keeps us from losing just, you know, turn 1 to some sort of graveyard hate or graveyard based combo deck. But hopefully here Wasteland plays a role in us allowing us to kind of get there. Also, the nice thing about, like, say Dual Pass or Dual Ponder Pass is that the Wasteland buys us time to dig for what we really want to get with Once, because we want the Once for a green source here, but if they, you know, if we get to buy some turns by just resetting with Wastelands and we draw the green source, then hey, Once now looks for an actual threat, which is cool. So I really like how Wasteland does make Onces a little bit better in that it can give you time to be able to dig a little bit deeper and potentially start cutting out things that you need. Prismatic Vista is the card that I do not want to see with a double Wasteland hand, but that is how it works out sometimes. Okay. Not gonna lie, a little bit risky as well, keeping a hand with no green source and really wanting Once to hit. But we're pretty lucky, so I'm trying to think, and chat, please let me know. In the blind, I guess not really in the blind, but do we want to fetch first and then Once, or do we want to Once and then fetch? I feel like because we're not too sure about what we want to do, we want to Once first. Like, the good thing about fetching first is that you know what's at the bottom, but we don't have another way to shuffle right now, so I think I do want to Once first, find like a Knight Or like a Gaddock Teeg, I think, against this sort of deck would be okay. Yeah, let's take the Teeg. Let's play the Foothills. Let's find a Taiga, because we have the Karakas for white. Okay, that's quite nice because Prismatic Ending here, that's fine. We now have Wasteland for Karakas. A little bit punished with, like, I think it's correct to get all colors online as soon as possible, but if we did get a Savannah here, we'd be able to double spell. But this is probably a matchup where I'm very happy to have this Teeg in the main deck over Collector Ouphe. Okay. Here I'm pretty happy to play Karakas into Mum. Keep the fetch land just in case we're up against like a back to basics deck. But if this eats a sword, then Mum, you've done your job. Yeah. Ooh, a little bit awkward there. Okay. Well, now we actually have, this is actually a pretty interesting turn of events. What do we want to do here? Because there's a few options. There is play the Teeg with Karakas open, Wasteland the Sanctuary, play Teeg out, or play Noble Hierarch, Wasteland them, pass. Chat, what do you think? We got time here. I want to know your thoughts. Let's grab the whole thing. I think I'd love to, like, not often against this deck do you get to Wasteland early on, and double Wasteland's pretty nice. This has also shown some weakness in their mana. So I feel like I kind of just want to go for Wasteland here, take out the Mystic, play the Noble, and then pass. And if they want to waste a removal spell on this, that's fine. They know about the Teeg, of course. Yeah, like very interesting. That makes me think that they have a bunch of spells in hand and they just want to tap out this turn if they find that land. It could also mean that they have something like back to basics main deck, and so they just want to answer Noble Hierarch as soon as possible. But Noble, they're not really a threat. We aren't really stumbling on mana, so I'm not too unhappy about that. We also kind of just have to go all in here on our jewels, so I can't get a forest here if I want to be able to play the Teeg with Karakas open. So let's go Savannah. A little bit awkward with Green Suns, but I think that's okay. This just, it does come up. Okay, no Hull Breacher. I was getting flashbacks there of Hull Breacher into Days Undoing. I think a land next turn would be the best draw. It allows us to Green Suns for 2 for probably Keen-Eyed without tapping off the Karakas. Actually, no, because we can't Green Suns with Teeg in play. Okay. Land means we can keep the Endurance going. I'm not tapping off this Karakas. Probably an Archive here if they play it. Yeah. A good time for it. Get to untap with double blue. I was going to say, I think if they Teferi, I just want to cast the Endurance here so that I have 2 threats in play. The other thought is if they bounce the Teeg, we can then Karakas it so they don't draw a card, but that doesn't really do anything either. I'm pretty happy to get the Endurance into play. But I don't think here I don't want to put like double swords and Prismatic Ending back into the deck. The blowout here is if they have the swords for Gaddock Teeg. Interesting, they're going to brainstorm in response. Maybe to try to hit a swords to then know what they want to do, but they can't force anyway with the Teeg in play. But I think just getting more threats into play. Oh, they have days. Okay. They do go back on the archive there. So the archive coming in tapped is definitely relevant. Put a card on top. We will try fatigue. They kept on top, which is very interesting. So let's attack the Teferi. Wow, okay, Teferi down. Here, we're just going to hold up Endurance. Missing these land drops is pretty huge, like not being able to deploy multiple threats, but that's just how it be sometimes. I still think here I'm happy just to keep that Karakas open. I mean, Hierarch's cool because it allows us to attack with the Teeg here. Keep the Karakas open. Next turn have access to 3 mana plus the Karakas. Nothing in their end step. Happy to attack. And then I think here it is going to be a knight, which thankfully they can't even hardcast Force. I think Teeg just really locking them off what they've drawn into. Wrath of the Skies, Prismatic Ending, Terminus, Supreme Verdict, Lauren Revealed, Author Olingus. There's a bunch of cards in Jeskai that might not be seeing too much play, but maybe here it's just a swords on the Teeg, yeah, to try to get off the field. And then maybe from here do some sort of Wrath effect. Okay. I mean, Minsc would be pretty cool. Don't find the Minsc. I'm pretty happy to... I could Green Suns for another Noble here and then play Teeg. If they daze me, then I tap off the Karakas, which is a little bit tough, but I feel like we just want to play the Teeg out. Play the land and pass. Probably holding up Commercial District. That can go in the graveyard. Wasteland's pretty sweet. Doesn't matter too much because they have 3 of each, but I'll try to take them off a little bit of white here. Attack with Teeg. Even if they have a flash blocker, I'd be happy to Karakas it and then replay it. Knight puts a real threat on the board as well. Like, now they're at a stage where they have to swords the Knight over the Teeg. Like, yeah, I feel Gaddock Teeg there just did so much work. You don't often get that sort of luck. The blasts are great. I like the Prismatic Ending as kind of a catch-all. I don't like the moons because of their base. Pretty happy to take out a Maze. I like the Endurances as flash creatures. The Mawloc I could see coming out. Probably doesn't line up against too well against the creatures that they might bring in. The Liberator is great to have if they have something like a Back to Basics. Thankfully, we have the Forces. They could have Harbinger of the Seas over Back to Basics, which is pretty interesting. I could see like a Wasteland coming out. Yeah, Teeg there was... I was very happy to see Teeg. It might just be a Knight. I actually like Endurance a little bit more being a flash threat. I don't think Purge does too much. Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty great point. I think that 4 swords probably is too much. Maybe I'll keep the Mawloc as a just in case. Take out a swords for that. Maybe go down to 2 swords. We have the ending also replacing 1, so... I think the Knight. I think just keeping like as many threats as possible. Keep them coming. Sadly, mana here just isn't viable. Mana not great here either, but Noble into Spirit isn't too bad. Can drop an Endurance here. Also have to somewhat watch our clock if this does go to 3 games. Okay. Pretty happy to go for Taiga here as it turns on blast. Might even mean next turn we could blast in Spirit. They did use a swords last turn on the Nobles, so if they use one here, I'm pretty happy, even if it's Prismatic Ending. Like, it's not hitting the Spirit, which is exactly what I want. Okay. A little bit awkward. Like, if I am worried about Back to Basics, I kind of want to get a white source here. But at the same time, then I can't cast like the Keen-Eyed or the Endurance. I just have to go all in. Don't really have an out to that. Okay. Honestly, pretty happy to see that. I think here we want to slam the Knight, because then at least if they do go for like a Back to Basics cut style play, we do have Knight to find the fetches. Ooh, Blast is pretty nice as well, but we can't do too much there. I think it's a case of get a threat down this turn, and then hope that next turn we get to potentially hold up the Blast with a threat. Okay. Mum. At this stage in the game, I actually don't mind Mum, because we can hold up Endurance here, and then next time we can play Keen-Eyed and also Mum, or Keen-Eyed and Blast. Okay. So they've used, again, they've used a lot of removal that I just don't want to give them back. This is going to do nothing. Okay. Also happy to play it a little bit safe here. Just play the Mum, hold up Blast. Interesting. Not going after the Mum as if they have another way to deal with Mum. I kind of hope it's Teferi Bounce. I don't want to... I'm not in a position to really pressure them that I don't think hitting the Ponder with a Pyroblast is viable. I really want to keep the Pyroblast for some sort of out like a Teferi here, which I think is a pretty great hit. Because I want this Mum to survive. And like if they want to force that, that's fine as well. Because now they get to bounce the Mum, but then we get to double spell next turn anyway. I also like taking them off the second white source here because of Supreme Verdict. I think if they had Supreme Verdict on top from the Ponder, they wouldn't have played the Tundra and just held it so that they can't be taken off. But they have a second white source anyway here. Okay. So now we're actually in a great spot. We get to... Probably don't want to go, like, overcommit. But I don't mind getting a Noble in play. Attacking Teferi. And then just holding up Keen-Eyed here. I mean, this Keen-Eyed is kind of like our Murktide. We get to take out Planeswalker here. We also get to take out Swords. Once is interesting. Let us once first, because finding Teeg again would be pretty insane. Don't find Teeg, but we do find another creature in case we want to be able to play around. I like that, because now we get to pump this up, eat sorcery. Probably should have gone after the Prismatic Ending, just because we do care about that. Nice. And now we have a 2-turn clock. Like, who's the Murktide player now? One draw. The One Ring. Okay. Best draw here is probably Green Suns, because it allows us to find Gaddock Teeg, which turns off a lot of their outs. Spirit, not too bad as well. No point attacking, as we learned last match. It really has to be, yeah, it really has to be ring into Supreme Verdict there, or potentially Terminus, but they don't get it done. So we are on the board. We have been on a 6-game losing streak, and we finally get on the board. So I'm very happy for that. I'm going to take a bathroom break real quick. I'll be back shortly. All right, team. Let's keep on that winning journey. But yeah, Teeg there just showing how strong it is, especially in those Jeskai matchups. Okay, I'm pretty happy to keep this. Turn 1. I don't mind holding the fetch lane in case it is like a mono red deck or some sort of like deck where I want the basics. So we will go Savannah into Green Suns. The thought is, if it is a bolt deck, sometimes you just want to go for fetch into Dryad Arbor to potentially go draw fetch into 4/4 Knight. But I kind of like just Savannah Dryad Arbor, let's go. Ooh, Badlands. Ooh, maybe just Reanimator? Tricky. Don't name swords. Or maybe name Endurance? Oh, themselves. Hey, Joe, a huge thank you. Hope you're doing well. All right. They have another Reanimate. Interesting, they didn't go for the Shallow Grey. And thankfully, no hand disruption here, or at least what we can see. But this is spice. This card definitely enraged some people back in the day when a certain player might have played in an interesting fashion to get a win. Alright, they chose Swamp, Reanimate, Entomb, Animate Dead, and Grizzlebrand. I guess they can also like pedal here with ritual. To quote Shakespeare. Once doesn't do a whole lot here. I kind of like the thought of playing the Wooded Foothills so we have access to double swords. I guess we could also swords now just so that we get to attack for one. Start the beatdown. I think potentially the best draw there might have been Spirit of Labyrinth, because it turns off the Grizzle. But does Borborygmos any target? Okay, wow. That's pretty cool. Let's confirm we are playing Plateau. We are. It doesn't really matter in this matchup, but Thoughtseize is pretty good. We didn't know about the Thoughtseize. Okay. What would be hilarious if they went to 1 and we were able to find Karakas to then win with the Dryad Arbor. So it's not over, but I would say the percentage points of us winning are dramatically low. I hope they take the Knight here because the once allows us to dig for said Karakas. They don't. Okay. That isn't great. So they exiled the Traxa. We know the Grizzlebrand's gone. The Reanimate. All right. We will thin here, which I don't like saying, but we'll go for the Plat. Yeah. I mean, Karakas would be fantastic. Once Upon a Time would be fantastic. Ooh, oh no, not yet. But potentially down the line. Ooh, Endurance. We can't draw this turn. I think we try to get there somehow with Knight, but it doesn't look good. Hey, Past, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Like, maybe there's a world where they don't take the Minsc and we get to throw something, but like maybe they go down on Grizzle. But I think with the Grizzle, they're surely going to find like another Unmask or Thoughtseize. Okay. This being a 3/3 as well is kind of brutal. Hey Sav, thank you very much for the Prime sub. A huge thank you. Let me know where you're from. If you play Legacy, what you play in Legacy. I think here we sadly it has Trample, which kind of is pretty brutal. I don't think we can block in a way that's going to save us. But now surely they draw twice and then just hit us with Borg. Yeah, or just have it. Yeah, okay. Tough. I like the Deafening Silences against the Dark Ritual deck. I love the Faerie Macabres. The Purge is actually quite good here as well. Mawloc, no. Teeg, too slow. I think I'm going to keep a Minsc just because it is a kind of nice card off the top. Mums don't really have much say in this matchup. Scryb Ranger. Pro Blue against Atraxa is somewhat relevant. Keen-Eye's good. Spirits. Potentially like a Force. Like Animate Dead. It's probably the big one. You're from Germany and usually play Delver. Now I'm on the UB tempo most of the time. Nice. That's cool. Are you going to play in Eternal Weekend Europe? It's definitely on my bucket list. Or MTG bucket list. I'm going to take out the mum. We're going to bring in a Force because I really want to have something for Animate Dead just in case. And I think that might be better than the other Minsc. Yeah. As a just in case. See how this rolls. We haven't seen Show and Tell. We haven't seen a blue land, so I don't want to bring in the blasts. But let's hope that we have some game here. Sadly not. Sadly, the closest for Australia is probably, or is, Eternal Weekend Asia, which is usually held in Japan, which thankfully for us is a direct flight. It's only 8.5, 9 hours. But I already had enough leave from a Europe trip earlier this year that I didn't get any more. I'm happy to keep this because we have the Faerie Macabre and just go for turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Spirit, into Noble as well. It's kind of cool. Leyline. Thankfully, this doesn't target, which is nice. And hopefully, they kept the hand based on the Leyline, not because they can go off turn 1 with hand disruption, but you never know. Oh, they're targeting themselves. Oh, this is actually pretty cool because now we actually get back the Faerie Macabre from the Exhume. That's pretty sweet. Which also leads to Cradle mana. Oh my gosh. Force of Vigor is pretty cool. So we get to go play the Spirit, play the Cradle, play Noble, and then we get to attack with the Macabre before. And hold up the Force of Vigor if that's relevant. Keen-Eyed's very good here. We can attack, just in case they have like a fatal push. We should attack with both, even though the Spirit attacks for 5 with Exalted. And then I'm going to tap like this for the Keen-Eyed. Because then we have Cradle mana for Force of Vigor Hardcast and also Eat. Yeah. And luckily we already have like, the lethal on board, but if you really wanted to get like tricky somewhat, you could always force pitch the Knight to hit the Leyline and then eat the Leyline, the Exhume, the Force, and like the Spirit. Oh, you could also hit this. Oh, it's an enchantment. Oh, but it's a creature. I guess it's 2. Yeah, if you really wanted to get there like next turn when they like deal with the Spirit, you could obviously, yeah. There's little things, but it doesn't matter. They know about the Faerie Macabres. Not too much we can do there. Having the Endurances as well is nice, but they do have the Ley Lines, so the Forces are going to stay in. I think we're just going to run this back. Really want to have like 2 pieces of interaction on the draw. This is 1 semi, and we do have a Swords, but we don't have much else going. Like Liberator and Force are kind of double ups here. We don't have Endurance or Faerie Macabre or Once Upon a Time. Like against Painter, this hand seems great. But against a deck like Reanimator, where they're probably trying to go off like obviously quite quickly, I don't think this has the tools to get there other than if it is Animate Dead. But usually they have Reanimate, Exhume, Animate Dead, and also Shallow Grave. So, you know, Animate Dead as potentially a card they cut as well, sideboard maybe? Like, or like trim down on. It's not even like the main way to get things into play, so. I'm going to mulligan this hand, and it's because I just don't think it's got enough interaction against their good to great hands, which they're going to keep on the play. So I think we do have to mulligan towards some sort of hate. And this isn't it, because we haven't found the mana to be able to cast anything, which isn't the worst thing, because I find that this matchup is definitely hand quality over hand quantity. So going down to 5, sure, mulliganing isn't great, but I would much rather have a great 5 than a pretty mid 7 as we did. So we're going to mull, and we're going to find some interaction. So I'm pretty happy to keep this, bottom the forest, and probably bottom the Scryb Ranger. That's actually a tough one because we do want to have double green for Keen-Eyed. So maybe it's actually the Plateau we bottom and the Scryb Ranger. Yeah. But not great. It's tough as well if they go Swamp Pass. I hope they name Faerie Macabre or Endurance and don't name, say, Swords. Nice, okay. So that's a miss. That's step 1. Step 2 is making sure they don't have Lotus Petal here, and we get to go Deafening Silence next turn. Nice, okay. That's a huge step. Endurance is fantastic off the top as well. That could have just won us the game there, but we do want to take things a little bit slow. So we want to find Savannah because there's no red cards in the deck anyway post-board. That's also just a really good thing to know about when you're playing multiple colors, is knowing when you side out a color, just not having to think about, oh, I have to get Taiga or I have to get Savannah. It's good to know that, you know, that is a thing. Okay, green card here I feel is the best thing. So I think here we actually want to go Windswept Heath so we can get Commercial District, because it is a green source and it gives us a little bit more about what we're going to draw. I don't think just having Keen-Eyed in play here tapped out is good enough because of Entomb. Entomb lines get around Deafening Silence, which we're going to see here. But it does keep them off the Grizzle. Reanimate. So what would really suck here? I guess they can't actually Shallow Grave the same turn, which is great. So let's cast this by getting rid of the Keen-Eyed. And then with the Windswept Heath in play, we can now use it to get Commercial District and try to find a threat off the top. All right. They have 3 cards in hand. There's Commercial. Another Swords isn't great, especially knowing they have the... I guess Cabal Therapy's gone, but we're going to put that in our graveyard. I was going to say Endurance would be a fantastic draw, and here it is. The issue is that I'm definitely casting it just to get some pressure on the board, and I'm probably targeting myself to get back the Endurance and get back the Sword. That's not too bad. Like, that has a lot of flex. It hits Grizzle, it hits Borborygmos, it hits Atraxa, Archon of Cruelty, it hits Animate Dead. One thing to note is that Okay, so they're going to take the swords here. That's fine. Well, they're targeting themselves. Okay. The Purge also... Not gaining them life is pretty huge. Especially if they try to draw once with the Grizzlebrand. Oh my gosh. Oh, coming in clutch. Coming in clutch. So Animate Dead comes into play. And then before the creature comes into play, we get to purge. Oh, we get to purge. We get to purge so well. And this means that the Grizzlebrand has no time to come into play, which is great. They don't get to draw cards off the Grizzle. It is still in the graveyard, but they can't cast another spell because of the Deafening Silence. And we just get to continue beating down. Swords is a little bit tough here because we are obviously... up against Cabal Therapy, if they have nothing else to do, but they do have to get a creature into play, so that's actually incorrect. They go for the red sources if they have something like a... Ooh. Okay. This isn't too bad because even if they attack, we have the Maze. They can't cast another. Like, Deafening Silence against Shellygrove is really good here. They do get to kind of refuel their hand. But otherwise, they're not casting anything this turn. But even if they pay, like, it's a really tough spot because even if they pay, this leaves at the end of the turn, right? Yeah. So Deafening Silence just doing so much. I mean, they can't even... They are going to go to 3. But what do they do with it? Try to find a creature they brought in post-board potentially that's like 3 mana? Insane. I don't know if they have an out. Yeah. Wow. That is just... I mean, to have double swords and not need to use them against a hasty Grizzlebrand is pretty sweet. Damn. All right. All right, here we go. Would love to play first. Ugh. All right. Okay, bottom probably the Plateau to potentially find with the Wooded Foothills. It's actually probably incorrect because we know about Commercial District. That's just doubling up on the Taigas. I think we should have kept the Plateau there, and just thought about it more. That was me just rushing, and I shouldn't have been rushing. But I think we will play the Wooded Foothills first to play around Wasteland somewhat, to potentially have White Source open on turn 1. Second Sword's not great. Really want to try to find something to put onto the board. And like a Wasteland here would be pretty brutal. Thankfully, we don't see that. Interesting. It's going to be black. Okay. Don't want to fetch just yet. I'm going to play the Wasteland this turn because I don't know about the forest. But tapping out for the Minsc is pretty tough. Maybe there's a world where I want both endurance and the creature in play. Sadly, if they have like the 2-mana dog, there's not much I can do there. This might be a case of just getting the Minsc in play. They obviously have another 2-mana creature because they played out the Stoneforge. I don't think it's looking great. Gonna hold it back just in case of Cauldron. Really tough. I like the Prismatic Ending. I like the Ouphe and the Force of Vigors. Spirits can come out. Keen-Eyed's still okay. Purge does hit black things, so potentially Purge comes up. Probably just an endurance. A one lander with double mum I don't mind, especially with the once. Ugh. I guess we're taking the forest. They swords this turn. We have Noble and Mum next turn, which is kind of cool. Okay. I like building out mana here. Okay. So we know about a Force of Will at the bottom. Sorry, Force of Vigor. I think the best draw is probably Green Suns because we get to Green Suns for Collector Ouphe and also Wasteland them. Oh, wow. Now they miss a land drop? Surely not. Okay. Scryb. Will Wasteland. 1, 2. And then we actually get the free endurance here because we get to untap. No. Because we just played a land, correct? Yes. Guess we get a free mum attack. Which all adds up. I did take out most mums against Eldrazi. I kept one in just because of how the sideboarding worked. But the reasoning for keeping a mum in was in case they have Dismember, and it also adds for Cradle mana early on. But typically one of the first things we cut. So if we untap the Noble here, we lose the forest, we put it into hand. So I think here I'm happy just to pass back. All right. We get another look here for Green Suns. No. And thankfully, we're not too scared here of Stoneforge because they don't have 2 mana for Cauldron. This is cool. So opponent activating the Vial to get the Emperor Bones, which at the beginning of combat on your turn, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, which we can of course endurance, which is nice. And then I believe for 2 mana, you can pretty much make it a copy, or you bring it back. Okay, so here we can just get rid of our Mawloc. Yeah, Safekeeper seems pretty sweet. I do like that Safekeeper can also just be kind of I win with Knight of the Reliquary sometimes. And it can also be found through Green Sun Zenith. That's pretty solid. I think here we're happy just to... do I want to keep open the Karakas? Okay. Yeah. So we haven't played a land for turn, so we get to go 1, 2, untap this, return this, play this, 3, 4, and then I'm pretty happy here just to 1-for-1 the Vial. Yeah, really tough for them. I think as well in this position, I'm very happy to start using them aggressively to get the endurance through to make sure it definitely is just 3 turns. I don't think we're changing anything either. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm very keen to play your list on Thursday, Joe. That's actually the last stream of 2024. Because it looks sweet, and I'm always a big fan of your work, especially the sideboarding as well. Like even just your notes on sideboarding against like Eldrazi and what you like to do against some of the more prominent matchups in the metagame is really helpful. I'm happy to keep this because it has a great answer to both turn 1 Mum and turn 1 Vial. If they're still playing Mum, I feel like they haven't dropped it yet. I feel like there was a discussion potentially about D&T dropping Mother of Runes. I'm going to let them take the... no. I think against D&T, I really want to make sure I get a land with this once. It's like a fetch land. Yeah, perfect. And then the Dryad Arbor is at the bottom, which is nice. I could see them taking the Prismatic here. Well, they take the Knight. Interesting. They're also on 4. Because I am a little bit... What am I really worried about here? So the Flooded Strand can't get Swamp. So they had to get a Scrubland. So if their mana is tight, they probably don't have another fetch land in hand that can get a black source because they probably would have gone for... interesting. Like, what am I really scared of? Like, turn 2 Stoneforge, we have Prismatic Ending for, which is great. I think I'm happy just to reset the game a little bit here. Okay. Happy to hit that with the Windswept Heath, so I really want to find another white source just in case of Wasteland. I guess we do have the Taiga as well into Noble. So we do have a white source with... Okay. I think I'm okay just getting basics here. Plains, take this out. And then the Maze of Ith for Kaldra as well is quite nice. That's probably a reason to go for Jewels in case they do have Wasteland and they want to go after our mana. Is the best Green Sun Zenith at the moment Nadu? I would say if you know the deck, Cradle Control. But if you're just wanting to win some games and have, you know, Force of Will as backup and cantrips, etc., then Nadu is probably the easier deck to pilot. Probably the, like, still hard to master, but I would say Nadu's definitely up there. I would say at Eternal Weekend, I think there'll be at least 2 Nadu decks in the top 8 of either. Okay. Keep on top. Yeah, both are very viable. Green, if they get Flickwisp, Green Suns here would be fantastic to get the Mawloc. We go for Stoneforge. Okay. Knight. I'm pretty happy here to attack with Noble and then play the Knight. Kaldra might be an issue. Yeah, Swords into Stoneforge, obviously very good as well. Again, Green Suns off the top is really viable. Minsc would be kind of cool as well, because we get to attack with Exalted. There's the Green Suns, okay. So there is a thought of going after the Recruiter of the Guard because we have the Maze of Ith for Kaldra, but I really want to get this Stoneforge off the battlefield. It's actually pretty funny that this came up because Mawloc right now doesn't have great targets. Happy to play the Dryad Arbor and pass. But I feel a little bit on edge here. The Recruiter is great to have in play because of things like Flickwisp. Okay. That's fine. That can get the Surveil land, which is nice. We get to attack for 3 here. And then hold up the Endurance. I don't want to play the Maze until I have to, because there are a few things that can deal with it pretty easily. Belia being only on attack is pretty brutal. Because it means that this Recruiter is probably going to get flickered. I don't think it's worth hitting either. Okay. Is this only when it attacks? Okay. We'll see what they get with the Recruiter, and then we will look at the top. I assume it's... Stoneforge. Come on, Minsc. Collector Ouphe doesn't do a whole lot here. Maze this turn. I'm feeling very outvalued. Like, against this version of D&T, I'd actually really like Punishing Fire. It's a lot of really good things. And, like, Minsc is still an out somewhat. Potentially Force of Vigor isn't too bad either. I assume here we see a Solitude just to make sure that they have everything lined up. Sky, interesting. Turn this to hand. Attack with the endurance. Wow, throwing away the recruiter. They must have another flicker effect. Yeah, Formal Way was really good. I don't know if you need two, but I haven't played the deck in a long time, so. Guess we just take this. Go to 6. Tough. That is gonna do it. Definitely outvalued. No real way to stop them either. No like Torpor Orb or things like that, but yeah, I think if the sideboard or the deck was a little bit more prepared for D&T, there's definitely some cards you can think of if you think you're going to run into it. All right. Would love a strong opening with a decent, like 3 lands, 4 spells. 3 lands, mana acceleration, 3 spells. 3 lands, mana acceleration, swords, 2 spells. Close. This is a Yorion deck, which is tough. Probably D&T again, but it's not too much we can do against that. Like, maybe try to dig a little bit. Okay. We do find a Mum, which is nice. I'm gonna bottom the Endurance. And then we have like once as well. Okay. Interesting. Fetch land is great. Savannah, Mum. This means next time we can double spell with Noble and Sword if it's relevant. We can Noble and Commercial District. A few things here that can come our way. Okay. Double Noble's actually pretty sweet. They got rid of an Ajayi, which makes me think they either have another one or they just have a pretty good... they already have like a bit of a plan with how they're going to build out their board. Magus is actually fine here, which you don't often say, but we get to like do some pretty cool stuff next turn with Minsc and Boo. Attack for 3 with Exalted and then throw it at the Spirit to draw cards. Yeah. So we actually get to go like Minsc hold up sword if we really want it. I'm pretty happy to attack with this. First. A little bit greedy if they're like block with the Spirit and then just get rid of Minsc the next turn with like a Skyclave. I don't want to use the Mum. I think the most scary Mother of Runes is the one that is untapped, where all possibilities are there. Okay. I think I'm pretty happy with this trade. But it's interesting because Skyclave is a big card here. That I actually think we want to swords and then draw. Yeah. It has trample anyway, but like I think being able to throw this now to clear their board and also draw cards is just a little bit too good. And finding another sword is just, yeah, obviously very strong. The Scryb Ranger as well with Mum means that we can use the Mum aggressively. And there's the Skyclave. Like, that's exactly why we wanted to use the Minsc. And I think it's because they blocked with the Spirit that I picked up that this was going to be their line. That you just have to get value straight away. And getting 3 cards, losing a swords is pretty decent. All right, let's start with the district. Karakas I'm actually going to put in the graveyard. There's not too many legendary things that I care about other than the dog, but we have an answer in swords. play our own spirit, and then I'm just going to hold up Scryb Ranger and Endurance here. Yeah, Plague, a really interesting one. Plague, I haven't seen too much of recently, but I do think there was a time not too long ago where it was quite relevant against Eldrazi, hitting the X1s. It was quite relevant against like Springheart Nintuku. If Ninjas makes a comeback, which I have been seeing a lot more Ninjas with the new Planeswalker, being able to turn off a bunch of their enablers is pretty sweet. So this does target, which is good. Hey Saito, very cool to see you. Hope you're doing well. I did really appreciate the love you got for the code giveaway in the Maverick Discord, which I will get to after this as well. All right. Ooh, that's decent. Let's start off with an attack, and I'm going to attack with both, and then use the mum to save, and then potentially get a Source Plowshares out of their hand with the Scryb Ranger. No. Okay. Well, I mean, here we also have the ability to untap the Endurance in combat. You're more than welcome. But yeah, just a really fast start from us, especially Mum at a double Hierarch allowed us to have both protection online and then also just build out our mana. This is fine. They attack. This doesn't have anything special, so we are going to block with the Mum. And then go to give the Mum Pro. Are they going to fetch? Pro White. I will. There is a world where they have like Bolt, and then we lose the Mum if we. But I feel like they would have just bolted. That I don't think they have any sort of interaction. I think we're happy to play the Scryb Ranger here. Like we could play it on our turn. We have enough mana to do everything. I don't think it's going to come up. We might actually have lethal as well if we just swords the Skyclave. They go to 15, and then we have a 4/4/5 11. Close. I guess we can see what we draw into. Because if it's Mawloc, then we can also swing without them gaining life. No, yeah. Yeah, actually, I'm pretty happy here. I'm pretty happy just taking it a little bit slow. A second Mum is fantastic as well. We get to attack with a massive Endurance. Hey, Punishing Waterfalls. Very cool to see you. Thank you. Announcing that actually gave me a lot of drive this week to play these two leagues like as fresh as I can be. So that was really nice. But it's going to be really nice to have a bit of a break as well. I think it is a mix of things, but I think that, yeah, blue-black is definitely a big reason. But I think as well, like the Green Sun Summit just really overdid it a little bit for me in playing like 7 co-streams in 2 days. Probably could have kept it a little bit, probably, yeah. Not good for the body, not good for the soul. Right, opponent, please don't have something weird that's just going to get me here. Thankfully, even like a Bombardiers I'm not too unhappy about. We have like Swords Protection, Double Mum Activation. All right, we talked about the Purge, we talked about the ending, and then these, we can take out the Teeg, we can take out the Spirits. The Minscs are still fine. We're going to drop down on an Endurance as well, a little bit too. Sulfur Elemental. Sulfur would be cool. Tough. Sulfur Elemental is a pretty cool card. I have definitely been got by double Sulfur Elemental to kill my Stoneforge Mystic, so I couldn't put in the Batterskull. I remember that against the Jeskai player, and I was pretty livid. Because I have, what do you call it? Split second, so you can't even respond to the second one. You just lose your Stoneforge and you hold your Batterskull. Pretty good hand if the once finds a green source, which is pretty high, so we're going to keep this. I wonder if they keep the Magus or not. File. Okay. I think I will still once here because I want to accelerate. Oh. Well then. Guess we're just going to go for Savannah into Dryad Arbor. Ooh, if we could Mawloc next turn off like a... If they have a Stoneforge Mystic, that'd be pretty sweet. Or some sort of turn 2 play. Being able to Mawloc and also Swords is pretty sweet. Ajani a little bit different because it is a 1/2, so we would have to tap out for the Mawloc. Ooh, come on, Collector Ouphe. Oh my gosh. Okay, well I think we know what we're doing. But it is naked. It is very naked. There's a lot of things that can deal with Collector Ouphe. It's actually quite scary because the vials still tick up. Hey, surely it's Brad. I appreciate you. I always love seeing your name in chat. Because I always have this little thing in my head where I'm like, is their name actually Brad? Or is there some sort of game behind the name where the name isn't Brad? And, you know, surely it's Brad, but maybe not. Maybe not. A little bit tricky if they have like end step swords and then start activating Vial, because I don't want to have the sword open. So I think what we want to do is attack first with Ouphe. And then we get to play the Keen-Eyed Curator with Plateau open to either eat or hold up sword. Just to try to go like a little bit wider. Actually, Joe, this is where Surge of, is it Salvation, which you had a really good screenshot of, would do quite well, being able to protect the Collector Ouphe. So I believe it gets hexproof and indestructibility. I mean, now they're in Skyclave territory. There's a Recruiter of the Guard. It's going to be okay. Oh, I wonder if they get a Solitude. Would be cool if they got Solitude, and then what they could do is evoke Solitude, and then stack the triggers that it exiles first and then leaves the battlefield. Exile the Collector Ouphe, and then before it leaves, activate Vial, flicker it with something, and then take out another threat with it. That would really turn the tide. But like, if we can untap here and then just draw into natural Force of Vigor and have open the 4 mana to be able to force both of these, then I feel very good. But that's obviously what? There's 2 of them in 48 cards. It's what, like less than a 2% chance? Have you seen this channel? Sometimes it happens. Oh, they go for Lion Sash. Interesting. There's Solitude. Okay. They have 2 cards left. One is Lion Sash, and one is something else. I think they actually did. What did they exile? Oh, they exiled the Lion's Ash. Okay, they probably wanted to attack first. I'm happy to take this out right now. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We just talked about this, right? We just had this conversation. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty happy here to just take it out right now. It is tough because they now like can flicker the recruiter through multiple ways, but yeah. Okay. Game on. I think what they should get here is probably just another recruiter. Because then it doesn't rely on this recruiter being around for them to get something else. Instead of getting like another Flicker Wisp. May the Schwartz be with you. Okay. I'm pretty happy to attack with the both here. A little bit risky attacking with this because I can't actually make it bigger because nothing doubles up. Land, land, creature, artifact, instant, land, land, instant, land, instant. But I don't mind like cleaning the board and playing the knight. Because the Mawloc here, the purpose of the Mawloc is to take care of the mother runes. But at 16 life, I think they could just take this. Keep the board. Both have like decent things to do once they're on the board as well. But they're happy to trade here, which I'm actually pretty happy for. Play the knight. I'll play the maze just in case we draw a land and want to play it as well, like a Karakas. Sorry, like a wasteland. Well, okay, double mom I wasn't really thinking of. Sons. Oh, okay. I think he 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sadly, I don't think even with Scryb Ranger. Actually, can we? Can we draw a card thanks to Scryb Ranger and Cradle? That is the question we have in front of us. So let's quickly bring out the little chopping board. So we currently have, let's use 1, 2, 3 to green suns for Scryb. We then have no mana floating. We then get to untap Dryad Arbor and return the Taiga, which gives us access to 1 mana, play the Taiga, that is 2 mana, and then here 3 mana. And then we have 3 creatures on board, which is 3 mana off Cradle, which is 6, which actually allows us to do both, which is pretty sweet. I think I'm happy with that. Scryb. Untap this, return this, play this. 1, 2, 3. Get rid of this. Get Cradle. Nice. We're 1 short, aren't we? We are 1 short. We are 1 short. No! No! We tried. If that's the case, then the best play there is just to wasteland them, which we can still do thanks to the Scryb. Let's return the red source. I guess we can't. Okay. Hey, Eternal Magic, welcome. Hope you're well. And I will take them off the parlor here. Oh, they float a red at instant speed. What is this? Nothing. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Now they will, of course, have only one card in hand here. And they probably know about another Wasteland coming, so I don't think it's going to be a 3-drop. I think it's going to be a Stoneforge. Stoneforge it is. I think Stoneforge with the Mum and knowing they can play it off 2 mana is pretty good. Yeah, I think I just totally phased, but correct. If you can do that, I would definitely do it then. So I think here we actually just want to attack with everything and see how they block. Because if they block the Dryad Arbor to give protection or something, we can then obviously make use of that pretty well. We can also Wasteland ourselves potentially if they don't block correctly. Okay, they block like this. Okay. We'll protect the Mum. Okay. I think here I will land, untap this, return this, get the 8 in. We have played a land, but I think that's okay. I don't feel like we need to Wasteland them here, other than potentially, yeah, because we know they have Stoneforge. They get to draw 1 card here. If it is like a Swords, I guess there's a reason like why don't we? And for me right now, it's because we take ourselves off white, but at the same time, Knight finds white off the Dryad Arbor. So this stops them from being able to find Swords Plowshares at the top and doing Swords and Stoneforge Mystic. Or another Mum, potentially. Stoneforge is fine. Could have also mazed the Knight. I think that was probably better to keep the Dryad Arbor in play. Because now this Endurance is going to put some damage in as well, which is nice. Go for Cauldron. I mean, hopefully what happens here is we get the Endurance into play. Don't really want to target anything. Now we get to do a big swing. Liberator doesn't do a whole lot here. We're playing the Dryad Arbor. We're attacking with everything. Hey, thank you very much. Hope you're doing well. Hope all is well on your end. Okay. Play the Liberator. I also meant to untap the Knight. That was incorrect. Hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us. The reason for that is then we get to hold open the Liberator, whereas here we have to return the Dryad Arbor and we don't have a land to sack. Yeah, our plan was definitely to maze. It's getting late. Interesting. So they hold up the Cauldron. Liberator flips. District is a land. Birds that can go in the graveyard. So if we attack with everything, I think we attack with everything and then just maze the creature that's getting blocked by Cauldron. Hey Kev, hey Ben. We're just going to leave combat damage up to them. There isn't a cheeky Tower of the Magistrate, unfortunately, but it would have been pretty sweet because we had to play D&T against, twice here. But they can't block the Scryb or the Dryad Arbor, which is good. Oh, blockers might actually be just, it's too much. Wow. All right, look, we finished with positive vibes. We got pretty brutally destroyed by D&T, but then we came back and got D&T, so can't be too unhappy. The deck was sweet. What did we play against? D&T twice. We played against Eldrazi. We played against like a Jeskai control and Reanimator. Nice. Down against Eldrazi, down against the Black Splash, but up against the Red Splash. And then it was just classic Black-Red Reanimator. Nice. Yeah, deck was sweet. I don't think, it's always tough because I feel like what we played against tonight wasn't potentially what we thought we would be playing against. But really nice to end on a positive note. That's always cool. So Teeg here, it's actually pretty tough because I feel like for Eldrazi and Jeskai control, where Teeg definitely won us a game, I do like Teeg because it turns off Kolaghan's command out of Eldrazi and a lot out of Jeskai, as we saw. But two D&T players having the Collector Ouphe in the main deck might have been a little bit better, but it's also a card that's open to a lot of removal. So there's definitely considerations there. I think, either of these in the main deck tonight would have been pretty solid. Against the Reanimator deck, it was nice to have the Faerie Macabres, especially when they had Leylines in game 2. Leyline does stop endurance because it targets target player. Keen-Eyed obviously a little bit slow, so it doesn't come up there. D&T is just a tough one to keep up with because there's so many 2-for-1s out of the deck that you really have to know what battle to hit. You do only have 4 Swords to Plowshares. You're not losing too many creatures, or they're not losing too many creatures in combat. So I feel like you really need to know what are the swords for, or what's your plan against turn 1 Mum, turn 2 Stoneforge for Cauldron. How do you race at that point? Can you race? You have to win another way. Well, the Minscs were sweet. There were a few times where I felt like decks had just built out their creature base in a way that playing Minsc on turn 4 wasn't good enough. You would probably just, even if you had the 4/4 blocker, probably lose the Minsc. So that was pretty tricky. I did somewhat miss more red removal in the main deck, but at the same time, it's just hard to fit in, especially if you're running the full playset of Endurances and the Once Upon a Times as well. Hey, thanks, Sato. A huge thank you. The Purge was pretty good. Purge came up against Black-Red Reanimator, which is really nice. We didn't see it otherwise, I believe. Commercial District. Lush. There was actually a point in game 1 where we did point out that Lush would have been a lot better, being a white source that comes into play, and then we can potentially like Swords and Wasteland the same turn. So that was pretty interesting. Because the red splash is pretty minor, we didn't miss like Ignobled Hierarch here. So there was a thought of Magus of the Moon over Blood Moon because you're a creature deck. You want to be both disruptive and pressuring. We finished 3-2. Curator just in time. So we got up against Jeskai Control. I'm going to quickly go through the changes that I made. They're very minor. So I played the Commercial District because I felt like we would probably want the red source untapped for Moon in game 2 more than the Lush, especially knowing that we have the double Savannah, Plains, and Forests. But there actually was a situation in game 1 where it would have been better to have the Lush, so that's food for thought. I played the Gaddock Teeg main deck and the Collector Ouphe sideboard because of the main things being K-Command out of Eldrazi, Post, and like the Grim Forge decks. We played against Eldrazi, which obviously has K-Command, but we didn't find Teeg. We played against Jeskai Control, and Teeg no doubt won us a game where they just were playing lands and passing and didn't really have removal for Gaddock Teeg, which is fantastic. But we also played against D&T twice, which the Ouphe would have been better there. We got up against Black-Red Reanimator, which is nice, losing game 1 and then winning game 2-3. Had a really sweet, this was actually, I think, a pretty fantastic situation where it's quite small here, but our opponent used Shallow Grave on Grizzlebrand when they were at 10 life. They then dug down to 3, but because of the Deafening Silence and the Maze of Ith, they couldn't attack with their hasty Grizzlebrand to draw more cards, and they couldn't cast anything unless they were digging potentially for a 3-mana like sideboard creature that they have as like a bit of a non-graveyard threat. So that was pretty sweet. That was a really nice way to win. But yeah, down against Eldrazi, up against Jeskai Control, up against Black-Red Reanimator, down versus the black version of Death and Taxes, and then up versus the red version of D&T. We got pretty hammered by the red version, just with the amount of, the black version, with the amount of just value they had, especially with Preformal Wear and Recruit of the Guards and Vile starts, really scary. And then I would say the red version stumbled a bit against us, and then we just had like pretty great starts with like turn 1 Mum, turn 2 double. Game 1 was like turn 1 Mum, turn 2 double Noble. And then they went Magus of the Moon, but we had Minsc and Swords to Plowshares to be able to kind of get there through the Magus. So, yeah. The only other thing that I changed, a little minor change, was Celestial Purge as an additional removal piece in the sideboard, which I think is pretty well positioned. It came up against Reanimator. We got to hit an Animate Dead before the creature came into play, which is fantastic. I took out the Force of Vigor number 3 because Purge just hits a bit more against Painter than, say, Blood Moon does, and I didn't want to take out the Blood Moons. I wanted to keep all 3 there for you because I know you wanted to see how they go. So we didn't really play the Blood Moons, unfortunately. We brought them in against Eldrazi, but we didn't really see them. So Spirit was decent. We didn't play against like a Bowmaster deck. Obviously not great against D&T, but there was a game 2 in the white-black match where double Spirit early on just got us there because they're just obviously hitting for 3 each turn, which is pretty great. Love the Minscs, love the Mawloc. Would have liked to have tried like more red like it's tough because there's not much like currently that's up to legacy standards in red. Like Mawloc even on the like chopping block a little bit because of the creatures that, you know, other than D&T, like there's not too many things that it hits, but it was pretty cool tonight. But yeah, like no Punishing Fire, but of course that runs into the same situation. Punishing Fire just isn't that well positioned in the format, so it's tricky. I feel like Minsc is still decent, and Minsc gave us like, it was just nice to know that Minsc was in the deck as well to try to draw into it, because it is card advantage. It is a different like axis in that you're attacking with, yes, a creature, but also a planeswalker. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I enjoyed it, and I'm happy that we finished in a positive record. That was really cool. So a huge thank you for that. A huge thank you to new followers, new subscribers. That's going to be me. I'm going to be back on Thursday for my last stream of the year with a pretty cool take on Mav, thanks to that Maverick Joe. So I will hopefully see you in chat for that. But if I don't, have a great 2024. If you like Maverick, definitely check out the Maverick Discord. You can also find my own Discord, the Zenith. You can obviously find more content at Twitter and YouTube, including all my upcoming pieces from the summit. And that's it. I'm going to quickly see who else is streaming and send you all their way. It looks like Tagores is playing some Cloud Post, which is cool. So hope you all enjoy that. Hope you all have a great week ahead. And hopefully I'll see you on Thursday. There we go. Take care.